Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Void Dwarf Studios, where, despite the technical difficulties, we carry on. And to continue back on schedule, we were looking at the orcs last time, and I figure let's start off with the smallest and work our way up. So, Gretchin. These little green arses are one of the main reasons that orcs are so successful. You might not think it because of their diminutive stature. I mean, these guys are pretty tiny. They only come up to about the knee of the average human, but yeah, they are very, very important to the Orc society. If there were no Gretchen, then there would be no structures, there would be very few working pieces of technology, and the Orcs would just keep hitting everything with clubs and just big rusty swords. The Gretchen are what make the fiddly technical bits possible, because an Orc just simply doesn't have the dexterity or skill to do a lot of the jobs that the Gretchen can. In fact, it can be argued that without the Gretchen, the Orcs wouldn't even get past the primitive stage where they're just running around the forest, hitting everyone over the head. There would be no guns, there would be no grenades, there would be no nothing. The Gretchen's dexterity and skill and, well, maybe not willingness to follow orders, but with the suitable application of violence will follow orders, means that the Orcs can actually do all the cool things that they can do. But what are the Gretchen, really? The Gretchen are a subspecies of orc. They don't have the same kind of metabolism that the orcs have, aka they don't grow as big as the average orc, but they are still comprised of the same fungus-like material that means that despite their stature, they're remarkably tough. Remarkably tough. They are as tough and strong as the average human, which means they can get away with an awful lot of things that you wouldn't expect. And because they are, whilst not intelligent, they are cunning little buggers, it means that they are capable of avoiding, most of the time, getting eaten by the orcs, who, well, when they're peckish, find a Gretchen tasty enough. As a Gretchen, you really do have to watch out for every other orc around, or everything else around, because nothing's going to protect you. You're on your own, and yeah, it's best to try and stay out of trouble. It is for this reason that Gretchen are also quite lazy. They don't like working. They like to avoid it as much as they can, or fob it off onto the next unlucky sod. And this tends to mean that anything built by the orcs ends up in a very ramshackle looking way. It's not because the orcs have a particular aesthetic style, it's mostly because the orcs themselves can't be bothered with all the hard work, and when they fob it off to the Gretchen, they can't be bothered, and they will do the minimum required to get the job done. Which means that, well, stuff tends to look a little cobbled together and a little bit, shall we say, rushed? Or maybe not rushed, certainly, bodged together. Let's put it that way. However, when they have suitable orcs overseeing them, aka bashing them over the head, it's surprising how quickly they can work. This is usually undertaken by an orc known as a runt herder. So the runt herder tends to be an orc of an older age who might not be quite as long in the tooth anymore, and it's his job to bully the Gretchen to get going. A rather thankless and undesired position in orc society, because it means you have to spend your day basically whipping the Gretchen into getting stuff done. And like I said, Gretchen are lazy. They will do all they can to avoid the lash or the squig, or the angry runt herder, who will undoubtedly punch them in the face for, well, being a pain in the butt. However, you don't really use Gretchen to build stuff in Warhammer 40k, you fight. So how do Gretchen fight? Well, sneakily, normally. They don't like to be in the front lines, they don't love charging into gunfire like orcs, unless they're in a killer can, the lovely walking monstrosities that the Gretchen have. Stick a Gretchen in a killer can, the smaller orc walker, and he goes from being one of the most cowardly creatures in the army to being one of the bravest. He feels pretty comfortable inside his metal shell and will rush forward and do all kinds of funny things. He will tend to prefer using guns over getting into close combat, but a killer can is usually quite capable of walking into a fight and coming out the other side surprisingly unscathed. These are very, very tough little walkers. And to be fair, you don't really want the Gretchin in close combat anyway. Gretchin are far better than the average orc when it comes to shooting, so give Gretchin guns. Give them plenty of decent guns, and you'll be amazed at what they can achieve. Often known as mech guns, give the Grots or Gretchin these things to control, and you'll have all kinds of fun. And the orc mech who's made them, he can never guarantee that they're always going to be successful, so it keeps them on their toes. Although typically speaking, they come in one of 4 different varieties. You have the tractor cannon, you have a bubble chucker, a smasher gun, or a custom mega cannon. Grots who are hard working and able to stay out of trouble, or at least not get caught, tend to be the luckier ones. They tend to be the ones that are slightly more motivated, for selfish reasons, of course. But yeah, if a Grot can get in good with a local orc mech, they might rise up the ladder and not get beaten up as much. However, there are risks to the job. Obviously, you're not being herded into battle in massive hordes and, trying your best to survive with the crummy little pistols and knives you have, but orc mechs have very interesting inventions. And of course, when I say interesting, I mean battle-shatteringly terrifying and horrendous, horrific, and awful fate for a poor little Grot. Because the orc mech's favourite weapon is known as a shock attack gun, a bizarre device capable of tearing holes into the warp and firing the poor unfortunate Gretchin through. The Gretchin that goes through, well, he's never seen again. Let's put it that way. He comes out the other side as a burning ball of fiery. I mean, it's ridiculous to even try and describe. Essentially, what happens is he's fired out the other side so hard and fast, at basically the speed of light, that he can be surprisingly damaging to even the most heavy of structures. But of course, this is the warp, so the Gretchin could fly out the other end at, well, slow enough to feel the pain when it hits something, but not hard enough to cause any damage. Orc shock attack guns are famously unpredictable weapons. So if a Gretchin realizes that the orc mech is building one of these guns, he probably should consider a new type of vocation because he's not very safe anymore. Maybe as a grot orderly for the local pain boy. Under this particular orc's, I'm not going to say protection because they really don't have protection, but patronage or tutelage, should I say, a grot orderly gets the chance to not only help dissect orcs, but also avoid an awful lot of the fighting, because the grot orderlies are just meant to do the sort of boring stuff, and if a grot orderly doesn't listen, well, he doesn't have to concentrate that hard, it's just an orc, it's just brain surgery. And in this particular position, so long as the grot orderly can avoid being hit by other orcs, or of course eaten, that's always a constant problem, he's relatively safe. But of course, the best position is under the protection of your war boss. However, very few grots manage to obtain this position of status, and even if they do, it's no guarantee that the orc war boss isn't just going to get hungry and, well, eat him later. But very few Gretchen will ever be bothered to try and climb this high. It's just too much hard work, and, well, their sneaky, conniving, cunning, evil little minds would rather just bully one another whilst they can. This is why grots, more often than not, are in big hordes, which you rush towards the enemy, usually with the runt herder behind, poking them and enjoying watching them try not to wet themselves as they get closer to the combat. And yeah, this is where most grots tend to stay, until they get eaten by the other orcs. Anywho, I think I'm going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed the painted model content that I was able to produce, and yeah, I look forward to hearing from you all soon. Like I said again, thank you so much for sticking with me whilst I go through all these technical difficulties. As soon as the PC's back, I have a lot of content I intend to upload. Anyway, as I was saying, thank you so much for all your support. It really makes a difference. Like and subscribe, share with your friends, and the next video should be more on Fire Slayers, and then we'll hop back over to some more orcs. In the meantime, Have a fantastic day wherever you are. Look after yourselves during all this COVID nonsense. And next video should come out as soon as I can, as soon as I get time. Take care, everyone.